Hello guys, my name is Mar. Our group topic is wetland protection in Tennessee, and what we will be going over today is what is a wetland and how do they form, how we can protect wetlands, how they help people. We will also be going to a wetland and just kind of showing the biodiversity of it. And we will also include an interview we did with 10 Green. 10 Green is basically the oldest accredited statewide land conservancy in Tennessee, and their mission statement is to conserve land where people and nature can thrive.
So my name is Bonabon, and I'm interviewing
Christy Henderson.
So first question I have is, what are wetlands and what purpose do they serve and how can we protect them in like basic terms?
Right, so I mean, wetlands are obviously super important in Tennessee, especially on the western side. They're basically the kidneys of our ecosystems. So filter water as it comes across the landscape, also helps with flood protection and those kind of mitigation of environmental disasters and things.
Now that you know how important wetlands are for us as humans, they also save us a crazy ton amount of money. Like, one fact that was stuck with me from one lecture in class is how expensive the water quality of wetlands can be, which is $1.5 trillion. That is crazy to think about, right? Like, all these natural ecosystems doing all the work for free for us, while it could cost us trillions of dollars just to even replace it. Now, in a perfect world, aka their natural habitat, wetlands can take care of themselves. But in a city like Nashville, it's kind of hard to do that. With the pollution from roads, construction, and even just the water flow can really hurt them. And on top of that, climate change is not making it any better. The TWRA points out that rising temperatures and changes in rain patterns are already putting serious stress on these ecosystems. The good news is that we're not just sitting around and we're not doing anything about it. Tennessee Green has actually helped about 43,000 acres of land, focusing on important wetland areas. The TWRA has a plan too. They're aiming for no net loss, which means that if a wetland is disrupted, another one has to be restored or protected to make up for it. Well, you may be wondering, what can we do? Well, let me tell you, it's going to take a lot of teamwork, like smarter city planning or supporting conservation programs like the Tennessee Green or TWRA, or just being aware of how valuable these places can be. And keep in mind, if we help protect these wetlands now, we're not just helping the plants or animals, we're helping cities like Nashville stay safe, healthy, and beautiful for our future.
How would your team envision an ideal relationship between the growth of urban cities such as Nashville itself and the possibility that we might interact with the wetlands and how we might change that?
I mean, ideally, smart growth would avoid impacting high quality wetlands or really important wetlands, because you can fill them in and recreate them elsewhere, but you're losing that natural landscape. So as much as people can avoid developing right in the middle of a wetland is ideal. Obviously, there's a lot of roads that go across wetlands and impact those, so you can't help that. But I think just making sure we're offsetting what we're damaging.
Okay.
And we have a federal no net loss of wetlands situation, so we have a pretty good system in place to offset those damages, but just being thoughtful and aware that your development is impacting lands that maybe you should be more aware of, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you could explain more about what those practices are, like the no loss of wetland?
Yes, so I want to say it was back in the 50s or so, the federal government realized that there was a lot of flooding issues and water quality issues based on wetland loss. So I can't remember what the act was or anything, but there is a no net loss in that if a development is going to impact a wetland, it has to be mitigated through the Corps of Engineers to offset that loss by either creating, enhancing, protecting, or there's one other one. Some types of mitigation where it's on a 1-to-1 or 1-to-10 ratio of however many acres you're impacting have to be offset somewhere else.
Right. Okay. What are some key ecological differences between a naturally occurring wetland and one that exists within or near a city like Nashville, so like man-created ones?
I mean, I would say it's an interesting question. So for a wetland to be a wetland, it has to have certain characteristics of like hydric soils, hydrophytic plants, water that stays in the landscape for a certain amount of time. So if you're creating that somewhere where the soils and the plants that are there aren't natural wetlands, I think you just lose some of that natural ecosystem in general because you're just recreating it. And I would say an impact of just urban sprawl and development is even if you retain a wetland, if you're cutting it off from a natural floodplain or you're cutting it off from its typical water source, it's just gonna slowly degrade over time.
So here we are at Shelby Bottoms Wetland Reserve. It is an urban wetland here in Nashville. You can see out there's some duckweed and some water and trees, you know, it's a wetland. Way out there you can see there's a turtle just kind of sitting up. You can see its reflection. And turtles are one of the many animals that live in wetlands like these. We've got some other stuff. We've got some honeysuckle right over here. This is actually an invasive plant. I believe it was brought over from Asia. So even though like kids like them, they're kind of bad. So yeah, you can hear some birds chirping. Yeah, this is Shelby Bottoms. There's another turtle. You can see it better than you could see the other one. But turtles are really important for these ecosystems, and they're one of the examples of animals that really need this land. So that bird you just heard, like the trill, that is a red-winged blackbird. It sounds like it's coming from somewhere over here. This here is an eastern tent caterpillar moth, just moseying about.